Welcome to Facing the Canon. My guest on the programme is Tola-Doll Fisher, the editor of the magazine Woman Alive. Tola, welcome to Facing the Canon.
Thank you. So good to be here.
Great to have you. Well, you do a number of different things. One of the things that you do is that you are the editor of this magazine, Woman Alive. Tell us about the magazine.
Okay, so I'm the editor and creative director for Woman Alive magazine, which is published by Premier Christian Radio. And it's the only women's ministry that we have at the moment. So through this magazine, it's my aim with God to really encourage and inspire women of all demographics and ages and backgrounds, just in their faith journey. And especially we're focusing next year on spiritual growth. So that's a really exciting area for me to work on.
Great. And you've got a podcast as well. Tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, so Woman Alive was bought by Premier in 2019. They got me in to edit it at the end of that year. So it's about 40 years old, but Premier's only had it for about 6 years. And our late CEO, Peter Kerridge, was really keen on having a podcast for women. So I was tasked, without having any broadcasting background, to come up with the format for that podcast. And we've now been doing the podcast Woman Alive for about 2 years. And I absolutely love it. I really love it. It's just such a great way of bringing women off the pages, our readers and our writers, bring them together, usually on Zoom, hopefully in the studio at some point, but just to have a conversation.
Now, let's tell a little bit about your own story. You were born where?
I was born in London, northwest London, to Nigerian parents. And I've lived in London most of my life until when I got married, I moved just outside London to Buckinghamshire, an area called Amersham, which is beautiful. And then moved back into London after the divorce. Then I moved to Cheltenham about 5 years ago, and I absolutely love Cheltenham. So I've lived around a bit, and I discovered, actually, leaving London, that there was a world outside the M25 that didn't involve leaving the country, which is a miracle for me to discover. And I love Cheltenham. It's such a nice place.
Now, your parents speak a number of different languages.
They do.
And I'm intrigued. And Latin is one of them.
Yeah, so I went to school where they taught Latin, and luckily my year was the year they decided to stop making it a requirement. But my sister speaks Latin and my mum speaks Latin as well. But my parents come from different tribes in Nigeria, so they speak their own tribal languages. My mum speaks her tribal language, my dad's tribal language, another tribal language in Nigeria, and French, and Latin and English. And my brother speaks, he's learning Mandarin and speaks Arabic, and a bit of French, and I think he was also trying to learn something Russian. I think he was trying to learn as well.
Multilingual.
All apart from me.
And you can speak English.
I speak English and occasionally tongues.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Now, when you were at school, your school told your parents that you're not reading very well.
Yeah.
And what happened?
So I was about, I don't know how, primary school age, whatever age you are, learning to read and write. And my teacher said to my mum that I was, for want of better words, slow and was finding it difficult to learn, and I wouldn't be good at reading or writing, and that was going to be an issue for me. And my mum is a strong Nigerian woman, and she just decided that was not the word that was going to be spoken over her daughter. So she took me out of school, taught me to read and write herself, and put me back into school. And I mean, now I'm a journalist, so.
I know. Don't you feel like you'd love to find that teacher and say to her, do you remember me? Do you remember what you said to me? Well, I just want to let you know, here's my magazine.
Here's my magazine and
here's
my
my
book.
Magazine, and I'm the editor of this.
Yeah.
Would you like to offer me an apology?
Well, I also just think it's quite wild to speak those kinds of words over children. I think it can be quite damning. And if I didn't have a mum that I did, who knows what would have happened to my learning. So I think, no disrespect to that teacher, I know it's quite hard when you have a big class, but I do think it's really important that children are not spoken over in a negative way that could affect their future.
Sure, but I think sometimes people say things that maybe a teacher, maybe a doctor, but we don't have to take it.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely, yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
one of my friends, Terry Baker, he went to see a doctor and the doctor said, oh, you've got this particular thing and it's going to get worse. And my friend said to him, well, you might give me the label, but I'm not wearing the coat.
Oh, wow, I love that.
And I think sometimes, you know, we need
Yeah.
to intentionally do that. Well, you've had a very colourful life and you're still very young. Let's move on. You go to university.
Yeah.
Okay, university life, you're not under your home
Whoop, whoop. No.
and a little wild.
And pretty wild, right? I just felt like it was my chance to be free. My parents divorced when I was about 4, and my mum is quite strict. And I think just didn't want any of us to be like stereotypes, right? Black children in London. Didn't want any of us to end up as stereotypes. So she really laid the law down with us while we're at home. But it was kind of like, while you're under my roof type thing. And then I thought, oh, great. Well, when I'm not under your roof, then I can do whatever I want. So I got baptized when I was 16, but I would say going to uni at 18, I went to Birmingham. Just wasn't living the same life. I was not going to church. I was not as disciplined in my like studying scripture or following the word. But I didn't think I wasn't a Christian, but I was going out a lot, and I wasn't really, my family is teetotal, so I wasn't drinking really, but it was more just like partying all the time. I had a boyfriend when I was 18 who was about 7 years older than me, which I wouldn't advise. I think it's a massive age gap when you're that young. Ended up having an abortion when I was 18.
In your first year at
in my
university.
First year at university, all just happened.
Sure. But how did you cope with that at such a young age? Were
I
you
didn't.
pressured into it?
Yeah, I didn't. I have always loved children. I worked in Sunday school when I was at church when I was like between kind of 14 to 17. Absolutely adored children. Always wanted to be a mum. So though it was a shock when I got pregnant, I didn't not want a baby. But my ex was very persistent. He was a lot older than me, as I've already said. And I just didn't have the, I guess, strength to kind of go against him. He would, I wasn't a little bit afraid of what he might do. So I just kind of went along with it, but deeply regretted it I've always regretted it.
And how did you cope initially after it, while you're still a student at university?
I threw myself into activity, which something that I do when I'm struggling is I just keep going out and out, and I don't want to face my emotions or what I'm dealing with. So I was going out again and just trying to distract myself with being a bit wild and partying.
Now, in your third year,
yes,
you decided it was Easter weekend that you would fast all weekend.
Yeah.
What prompted you to decide to do that?
Sounds like a big jump, doesn't it? To
It
go
does.
from that. Yeah. So the church I grew up in, we followed the rules of the Old Testament and did things like Day of Atonement where we fasted. So that fasting as a practice wasn't strange to me. It wasn't alien to me. But I think it was Easter weekend. I didn't want to go home because after that abortion, that had really created a tension between my mum and I. My mum had known that I was pregnant because I told her, and she said to me, "Come home. You're not old enough to be a mum, but I'm ready to be a grandma."
And that was very accommodating.
It was very affirming of her and accommodating,
and gracious. Yes.
And then because of my ex, and I did it anyway, it caused a rift between us, I think. And also my mum there's 3 of us. She had other children to worry about. So I didn't want to go home that Easter weekend, basically. And I was living in a flat share. All my flatmates went home. And I, alone with my thoughts, I could kind of sense God. And I kind of felt like I want to do something. I don't know what I need to do, but something needs to change. And I just felt the Holy Spirit just impressed on me that I needed to fast that weekend, which is something I'd done before. So it was okay. I was used to doing that. I knew that was something that I could do. and also to write down the names of people that I had been intimate with, people that I had a sexual connection with or relationship with that I wanted in my past. I wrote down all the names, and I mean, it wasn't like a long list, but I wrote down their names because I wanted to be rid of that. I knew I wanted to be kind of what I felt clean from that. And I did nothing all weekend. I didn't watch any screens. I didn't look at my phone. I just was like reading the Bible, just like still listening to God. And at the end of that weekend, I just felt this peace, and I ripped those names up, and I felt like God had like removed something from me, removed a burden from me, and kind of cleansed me in a way that I could never explain to anyone. But it just felt like God had seen me and knew my pain, and he'd released me from that. And it was just the most personal and just beautiful experience I've ever had.
And did you, post that Easter weekend, feel almost like the benefits of of that Easter weekend resurrection? You know, that you felt free.
Do you know what? I really did. But then something happened that I've been conscious of ever since, is that I told my mum I had that experience, and my mum's response was that she hadn't felt anything. She hadn't felt that anything had changed. And because at that point I still really felt like I still was under my mum's kind of authority. I felt like I had to go through her to get to God. So I thought, oh, if she didn't feel anything, maybe it wasn't real. And so I struggled for a bit, thinking, I almost dismissed that experience. And that's something that I've been working with God since, is to have this direct relationship with him. It's not for anybody else. And God doesn't reveal things to other people that he reveals to me. So it doesn't mean that it doesn't dismiss my experience if no one else knows about it. But that was something that I had to learn, and that hit me quite hard, I think, after that.
You graduated.
Yeah.
You always had this desire to be married and have children, and
yes,
you did get married.
I did.
And you did get pregnant.
Yeah.
But it wasn't to be.
No.
On that occasion.
Yeah. So I got married in with my ex-husband in my early 20s, and everything was kind of going like to plan. And we moved to Amersham, and I absolutely loved my in-laws. Like, the tropes about a mean mother-in-law, I never experienced that. I had a wonderful mother-in-law and in-laws. I was very grateful. And so I got pregnant a couple of years in, and our daughter Annie died a few hours after birth. So I went in spontaneous labour, and immediately my thought was, this is payback for the abortion I had when I was 18. Because I then my understanding of God was still a God of retribution. It was like an Old Testament God, as you do this, you get this. You don't do this, you don't get this. And I felt like I'd failed, my body had failed. It was one of the most horrendous times of my life. I feel so grateful that I can talk about it now, like quite calmly.
Yes.
And then a few months after that, all I wanted to do was try again. I didn't really want to face anything else, but that's when my ex-husband filed for divorce, or told me he wanted a divorce. And I really wrestled with him. I hid our marriage certificate so that he couldn't file for divorce. I did all kinds of things to kind of stop him. And in the end, I realised that I had to let him. That's what he wanted. I had to let him do that. But it meant so soon after losing our daughter, I was fighting for our marriage. So I didn't really mourn that properly until like many years later. But when she would have been 7, the year she would have been 7, I felt God tell me to go back to the cemetery where we'd scattered her ashes, which is the first time I'd been back. And it was this beautiful garden in Mortlake Cemetery. And it's my experience of God is always such a sense of peace. And it wasn't like anything particularly happened. There was no like blinding light or anything. It was just this sense of peace. And I felt like God was saying, your mourning time is over. And in a way that wasn't like, stop it. It wasn't telling me off. It was like, you can move on now from mourning your daughter. And so I kind of did.
There's a scripture that's come to mind, is from Song of Songs, chapter 2, where it says, winter is over, springtime has come
Yeah.
and the sound of doves can be heard. So, in a sense, that began to happen in your life.
Yeah, I think so. It did, and it wasn't like everything suddenly was rosy either, but it just felt like there was a season for this, and this season is kind of moving on, and you're into a new season.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
you've experienced, obviously, as you look back in your life, regret. You've also experienced hurt, disappointment. You've had to grieve. When did you eventually kind of encounter the transforming, saving, delivering grace of God?
I don't know that it's at any specific point. I think it's been such a journey for me. I think it's just been God's very gentle with me because I'm such a sensitive soul, and I think God reveals things to me gently, and He shows Himself to me gently and at different times and in different ways. And I feel like post divorce, I went and did a ski season for 6 months, which was incredible. But I was still in that busy period. And then I went to Coachella in California, and we drove out to San Francisco, and we were doing this amazing stuff. But I was still busy. And when I came back to London, I felt like God was like, stop all the busyness. And that's when I felt God revealed Him to me as my father.
Yeah.
And that's a relationship that. So my earthly father, who I absolutely love and is, a great dad, wasn't around when we were younger. So I didn't have a strong relationship with him. Some people would talk about God as a father. I wouldn't really understand what that meant. And so I felt like God has been showing me in that season Himself as a father. And then more recently it has been the person of Jesus Christ as my
Yes.
friend and someone that I can, who knows what I'm going through because He experienced life as a human being. So that grace, I think, comes in like waves, and it comes in different ways, and I'm experiencing God differently because I think I have in the past thought there'll be this one experience and then everything will be fine because you've got God and you've got His grace. But then after Annie died, after the divorce, then I got diagnosed with cancer.
Yes.
And then I had an operation that removed one of my ovaries. And then I had to have chemotherapy. So it's not ever been like one thing's happened, then there's God's grace and that's it. It's been this continuing like learning and seeing God's grace in different situations, which is my experience of God.
Tell us a little bit more about your battle with cancer.
So I was diagnosed, I had a lump and I didn't know what it was. I went to doctor at the beginning of 2021. And I just moved to Cheltenham at the time, so I was between doctors, but my London GP referred me to UCLH in London, University College Hospital, and they discovered that it was a cancerous lump. And so their first thought was to remove it. The plan was to remove it. So they removed it because it was so big and I lost a lot of blood. I had to have a few blood transfusions, but they also had to take away my left ovary and fallopian tube. And I still really wanted to have a baby. So I was also a bit like, God, what are you doing here? Just lessening my chances. But then I thought, okay, that's done. It's out and I can go back to living my life. And then I remember being outside my new place in Cheltenham. I just moved to a new area. I love Cheltenham, love my new place. And I had a call from the doctor in London saying, your blood test showed that the cancer is still there and it's an aggressive cancer, so you need to have chemotherapy. And I just wept because I just thought, God, how much more can you put me through? How much more can I go through? A lot, it turns out. And so, then I had to have chemotherapy. It was an aggressive cancer, so it's quite an aggressive chemotherapy treatment I had, and lost my hair, lost some of my hearing in my left ear that hasn't come back. All the things you have with chemotherapy, like you get like weird marks on your skin because it kind of burns your skin, and it was just a horrendous year, really. And I'd also not long just started at Premier, so I had all these plans to do stuff, and I was just mostly just sick and not able to work.
But you got through that.
I did get through that.
And how are you now? How's your health?
Yeah, I'm really good. I mean, there are still few health issues that are not to do with that.
Sure.
So to do with anemia, which I've had on and off over the years. But amazingly, after I was meant to have 3 rounds of chemotherapy, aggressive rounds, because they wanted everything gone after the operation. And after the second one, my body felt like it was just being pulled apart, and I felt like I couldn't go through anymore. And I told my oncologist that I wanted to stop. And I said to her, I'm not afraid of dying. And she was immediately worried and kind of brought in like this psychotherapist and this person's talked to me. And I said to her, I am not suicidal, but I am a Christian and I know where I'm going if I die. And I feel like my body is being torn apart. So I'd rather not go through anymore. So she's really worried, but I just felt so sure in that conviction that God would look after me kind of either way. And I also consulted a medical practitioner who told me about some non-chemotherapy related things I could do in terms of like my what I could eat or not eat and other things, my diet, exactly. Yes. And I get tested every 6 months. And the last time I had chemotherapy was 2021 at that end of that year. And I'm absolutely fine. Yes. So I'm just so grateful to God for that.
And as you mentioned, earlier on, that moment when you discovered God as your Father, I'm reminded of the psalmist who said, He is like a father to us. He is tender and sympathetic. As high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is His love for us. Have you discovered that in the midst of this journey? Yeah, absolutely. I've discovered this. The Bible says the righteous live by faith. Yes. And I feel that so much that I don't understand a lot of what I've experienced or what I'm going through or what's happening around me, but I absolutely trust God. I absolutely trust Him as my Father. And I know that His name is synonymous with good and that He is good. So there's this peace somewhere that I'm resting in because I just trust Him. I've learned to just trust Him. And I think as a journalist, I've always tried to understand things. I want to know why and how this has happened and what the point of this is. And what I'm learning is that if I have a Father who I absolutely trust and I know loves me and wants the best for me, I don't necessarily need to have all those answers. So even though I do still wrestle with things, that is quite a healing place for me to kind of rest in that. Yeah. I like the title of your book, Still Standing. Not standing still. No. But still interesting. What prompted you to come up with that title? So I think this is in Proverbs. It says the godly may fall 7 times, but they would get up again. Yes. And it just felt like I had all these knocks. I know everyone has their own things they go through and everyone has their own experiences, but for me it felt like I was being knocked down all the time, and then I'd get up again and something else would knock me down. It was like, oh, I've lost a baby, oh, now you're getting a divorce. Like felt like it just kept coming, and yet I still felt like somehow okay. I still have done like incredible things I'm so grateful for in terms of like travel and meeting people and the ski season and just random things that I've done that I maybe wouldn't have done if I hadn't gone through those things. Like still fully enjoying my life. And looking back, when I wrote that book, I felt like that's amazing that God has me still standing. He has me there, like still living my life fully, despite all of those things going on around me and happening to me. And that felt quite miraculous. Yes. Not that I'm doing it, but that God has me in this place that I'm still able to live a John 10:10, as I call it, life. Yes. Living life to the full. And there's still more to the story. Yes, exactly. So for you, Tola, now looking forwards, we've looked back a bit. Looking forwards, what are your hopes and aspirations? I mean, you're obviously, you're influencing a lot of women through both the magazine and your podcast, and undoubtedly you want to help more. Yeah, absolutely. But what aspirations and hopes do you have for the future?
For myself or for the
For
ministry
both.
of... Feels quite a vulnerable question. What I have experienced is I'm a trained journalist and I love magazines. I've been doing magazines pretty much since I graduated. I feel grateful to be in a job that I studied and love. But I absolutely love broadcast now. I love being able to speak to people face to face. I did a short series called Sisterhood, a TV series with a couple of friends, a YouTube series I absolutely loved and really enjoyed doing. And I love to connect women. So I think I want to do more of that, like meeting people face to face, especially since the pandemic. I think we're all suffering a bit of loneliness in some way or form. A lot of people I speak to, even if they don't live by themselves, are feeling lonely and disconnected. So I want to connect women, create safe spaces for conversations that you may not hear in the church.
Yes.
Might not be appropriate for the church setting. Church leaders have a lot of already on their plates, but I think creating safe spaces specifically for women, I think, is a real heart passion of mine. And to help women with spiritual growth, which I'm still learning myself, the importance of spiritual growth. But I think it's important to share that and to be in communion with each other. Definitely. And I want to write more books. I didn't write the book so I can say I wrote a book. I want to be an author, so I want to do more.
Well, your story is fascinating, Tola, and quite colourful, but there's still more to the story that will be revealed in time as we fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith. Tola, really enjoyed having you on Facing the Canon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's been amazing.
I really hope you've enjoyed that and enjoyed a little of Tola's story. Hope it's inspired you and encouraged you and infused you with a bit of faith, hope and love that the Lord can write straight with our crooked paths. Thank you so much for joining us on Facing the Canon. Please join us again.